Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive council chamber on Kepler Prime Station. The room was built to hold 1,000 beings from across the galaxy, and today it was packed. Representatives from every major species in the Dominion Empire had come to hear what the humans had to say. Jake looked around at the alien faces staring down at him. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking trees. Now the Dominion Empire controlled 3,000 star systems and had been the most powerful force in the galaxy for over 800 years. Humanity had been part of their empire for 50 years now. Ever since first contact in 2337, the humans were considered a minor species. They had only 12 colonies and maybe 30 million people living outside Earth. Most aliens thought humans were useful for manual labor and simple manufacturing, but not much else. Today, Jake was about to change that view forever. Admiral Vexthera, Empire's supreme naval commander, sat in the highest chair. She was 12 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. Her species, the Chthoni, had conquered half the galaxy before joining the Empire 2 centuries ago. She looked down at Jake like he was an insect. "Human Morrison," she said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "You requested this emergency session? The Emperor himself has granted you 5 minutes to speak. Do not waste our time." Jake took a deep breath. He had practiced this speech 100 times, but standing here now, surrounded by beings who could order his entire species wiped out with a single command, his mouth felt dry. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a simple piece of paper. "I'm here to deliver a formal declaration from the United Earth government," Jake said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's speakers. "Effective immediately, the Sol system and all space within 50 light-years of Earth is declared off-limits to all non-human species." The chamber fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter began. It started with a few chuckles from the smaller species, then spread like a wave across the room. Admiral Vexthera's mouth opened wide, showing rows of sharp teeth as she laughed harder than Jake had ever seen an alien laugh. The sound was deafening. Commander Lisa Patterson, who had come with Jake as humanity's diplomatic representative, kept her face calm. She had expected this reaction. They all had. But she could see the anger in Jake's eyes as the aliens continued to mock them. A delegate from the Zephyrian Commonwealth, a species that looked like giant blue spiders, clicked his mandibles together in what Jake knew was their version of laughter. "The humans think they can claim territory in our empire," he said to his neighbor. "How amusing." Admiral Vexthera raised one massive hand and the laughter slowly died down. "When Morrison," she said, wiping what might have been tears from her yellow eyes, "surely you jest. Your species controls barely a dozen worlds. You have no military fleet worthy of the name. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What exactly do you think gives you the right to make such demands?" Jake folded the paper and put it back in his jacket. "The declaration has been delivered, Admiral. What happens next is up to you." The reptilian admiral leaned forward in her chair. "I will tell you what happens next, little human. The 47th Battle Fleet will escort you home. They will demonstrate to your people what happens when minor species forget their place in the natural order." More laughter filled the chamber, but this time it had a cruel edge to it. Jake could see several delegates already making notes on their communication devices, probably placing bets on how long it would take the Empire to crush humanity's foolish rebellion. Admiral Kethmer Vixthera called out to a section of the chamber where the military officers sat. "We'll take your fleet to the Sol system. Show these humans the error of their ways. Use whatever force is necessary." Admiral Kethmer stood up. He was from the same species as Vexthera, but slightly smaller, with lighter-colored scales. "It will be my pleasure, Supreme Admiral. How many ships should I bring?" "Take the entire 47th Fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and a full support complement. I want the humans to see what real power looks like before they surrender." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The 47th Fleet was one of the Empire's largest battle groups. Each dreadnought was over 2 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. The entire human military consisted of maybe 50 ships, most of them converted cargo vessels, with basic weapons. "The fleet will depart within the day," Kethmer said. Should I expect any resistance from the human military? This brought another wave of laughter from the assembled delegates. Even some of the more serious species, like the crystal-based Etherians, made sounds that Jake recognized as amusement. Resistance, Vexthera said. From what? They're cargo ships with laser pointers attached.
Admiral?
You could probably handle this with a single cruiser, but I want to make sure the lesson is clear, not just to the humans, but to any other minor species who might get similar ideas. Jake and Lisa exchanged a look. They had known this would be the Empire's response. Every simulation, every war game, every intelligence report had predicted exactly this reaction. The Empire's arrogance was as predictable as gravity. Very well, Jake said. The message has been delivered. Commander Patterson and I will return to Earth to await your fleet's arrival. You will not be returning to Earth, Vexthera said with a smile that showed all her teeth. You will remain here as our guests until Admiral Kethmer reports your government's surrender. I would not want you to warn your people and cause unnecessary casualties. Lisa stepped forward. Admiral, Captain Morrison and I have diplomatic immunity under Imperial law. You cannot detain us without cause. The cause, Vexthera said, standing to her full height, is preventing an act of war by a rebellious species. Guards, escort our human guests to comfortable quarters. They will remain there until this matter is resolved. For massive guards, each from a different warrior species, stepped forward. Jake could see plasma weapons at their sides and knew that resistance would be pointless. As they were led from the chamber, he could hear the delegates already making plans for dividing up human colonies once the rebellion was crushed. In the corridor outside the council chamber, Lisa whispered to Jake, "Do you think they suspect anything?" Jake shook his head slightly. "No. They see exactly what we want them to see. A weak species making desperate threats they cannot back up." "I almost feel sorry for Admiral Kethmer," Lisa said quietly. "Almost," Jake agreed. But not quite. As they were led deeper into the station, Jake thought about the message that would soon reach Earth. General Amy Collins would be waiting for it. The message would be short and simple. The Empire took the bait. 50 years of preparation were about to be put to the test. The Empire thought they were dealing with a minor species having a tantrum. They had no idea they were walking into the most carefully planned trap in galactic history. The guards locked them in a luxury suite with a view of space. Through the massive window, Jake could see the 47th Fleet assembling in the distance, of ships bristling with weapons, preparing to teach humanity a lesson they would never forget. Jake smiled as he watched the fleet prepared to depart. They were right about one thing. This would be a lesson that nobody in the galaxy would ever forget. They just had no idea who would be teaching it. Admiral Kethmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace through the main viewing screen. His fleet of 250 ships had been traveling toward the Sol system for 3 days now. The journey that should have taken a week was being cut short by his eagerness to crush the human rebellion. Admiral called out his chief navigator, "Telndai, we are approaching the edge of the Sol system. Should I drop us out of hyperspace at Neptune's orbit as planned?" Kethmer nodded. "Yes. I want to give the humans time to see us coming. Fear is often more effective than immediate destruction." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 massive dreadnoughts formed the center, each one bristling with weapons that could destroy cities. Around them, 40 heavy cruisers, spread out in attack formation. The rest of the fleet, destroyers and support ships, filled the space between the larger vessels like a cloud of death. "Begin scanning for human defenses," Kethmer ordered. "I want to know what pathetic forces they have managed to gather." Lieutenant Verdosh, the sensor officer, bent over his instruments. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion on his reptilian face. "Admiral, I am detecting no ships, no orbital platforms, no defensive installations of any kind. None at all," Kethmer asked. "Scan again. Perhaps they are hiding behind one of the outer planets." Verdosh worked frantically at his controls. "Sir, I have scanned the entire outer system." There are no human military vessels anywhere within sensor range. I am detecting normal civilian traffic around some of the planets, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest destroyer. Kethmer frowned. This was not what he had expected. Intelligence reports suggested that humanity had at least 50 warships, converted cargo vessels with basic weapons. They should have been assembled here to make some desperate last stand. Instead, the system seemed almost empty. Perhaps they ran, suggested Commander Yithler, the fleet's tactical officer. Many minor species flee when faced with imperial justice. The humans may have abandoned their homeworld rather than face destruction. Scan Earth itself, Kethmer ordered. Are there still humans on the planet? Bardash adjusted his sensors. To focus on the inner system? Yes, Admiral. I am detecting billions of life signs on Earth. The planet appears to be normally populated. I also see civilian ships moving between Earth and Mars and around Jupiter's moons. It seems like business as usual. It's puzzled Kethmer even more. Why would the humans make such a bold declaration and then not prepare any defenses? Were they truly so arrogant that they thought words alone would protect them? Set course for Earth, he commanded. All ships maintain formation. Perhaps when they see our fleet in their skies, they will come to their senses. The fleet began moving deeper into the solar system, passing the orbit of Uranus without incident. It was then that things began to go wrong, though at first the problems seemed minor. Admiral Teldai called out, I am getting strange readings from our navigation systems. The gravitational fields in this system seem ... unusual. Unusual how? Kethmer asked. The gravity wells of the planets are not quite where they should be. It is as if space itself has been bent in small ways. Our hyperspace engines are having difficulty calculating jump coordinates. Kethmer walked over to the navigation station. The displays showed their current position and course, but several warning lights were blinking. How serious is this problem? Not serious yet, sir. We can still navigate normally using conventional engines. But if we needed to make an emergency jump to hyperspace, the calculations might be off by several light years. This was concerning, but not immediately dangerous. Kethmer decided to continue toward Earth, whatever was causing the navigation. Problems could be investigated after the humans surrendered. As the fleet passed Saturn's orbit, more problems began to emerge. The communications officer reported that long-range transmissions were being distorted. The weapons officer noticed that targeting systems were showing minor errors. The engineering chief complained that the ship's power grid was fluctuating. For no apparent reason, none of these problems were serious enough to stop the fleet. But together, they created a sense of unease among the crew. Veterans of dozens of campaigns, they had never encountered anything like this before, Sir Verdosh reported. I am detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the asteroid belt. It appears that many of the larger asteroids have been moved from their normal orbits. Kethmer studied the sensor display. The asteroid belt, which should have been a relatively sparse collection of rocks, now showed dense clusters of objects in seemingly random positions. Mining operations, he concluded. The humans have been extracting resources from the asteroids. Nothing we need to worry about. But as the fleet approached Jupiter, the gravitational distortions became stronger. Ships began reporting that their artificial gravity systems were fighting against outside forces. Several vessels fell out of formation as their pilots struggled to maintain course. Admiral, the chief engineer, called over the communication system. Whatever is causing these gravity fluctuations is affecting our power cores. We are losing efficiency across all systems. Kethmer felt the first stirring of real concern. Can we still fight if necessary? Our weapons are operational, but at reduced power. Our shields are holding, but they are draining energy faster than normal. The fleet pressed on, but Kethmer noticed that his ships were moving more slowly than they should. It was as if they were flying through thick liquid instead of empty space. The sensation reminded him of something, but he could not quite place what. Admiral Telnai said urgently, Our hyperspace engines have completely shut down. We cannot jump to FTL until we leave this system. Now Kethmer was truly worried. A fleet without hyperspace capability was like an army without the ability to retreat. They were committed to this battle, whether they wanted to be or not. Sir, Incoming transmission from the human homeworld, the communications officer announced. Put it on screen, Kethmer ordered. The main viewers showed the image of a human female in military uniform. She appeared to be in some kind of command center, with other humans working at control stations behind her. The woman had gray hair and calm eyes that seemed far too confident for someone facing an Imperial fleet. I am General Amy Collins, of the United Earth Defense Force, the woman said. Admiral Kethmer, welcome to the Sol System. I trust your journey has been comfortable so far, Kethmer stepped forward. I am Admiral Kethmer, of the 47th Imperial Battle Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to Imperial justice for your illegal declaration of independence. General Collins smiled. I'm afraid that will not be possible, Admiral. You see, you are no longer in Imperial space. You are in human space now, and our laws apply here. Your laws, Kethmer laughed. Woman, I have over 200 ships and enough firepower to turn your planet into glass. What laws could possibly protect you from that? The laws of physics. Admiral Collins replied calmly, specifically the law that says alien technology stops working in gravitational dead zones. Kethmer felt ice form in his stomach. Now he remembered what the sensation reminded him of. It was like flying through a dampening field, the kind of weapon that disabled enemy ships by disrupting their power systems. But those fields were small, localized effects. They could not cover an entire star system. Impossible, he said. 50 years ago, we were impressed by your technology, Collins continued. Your faster-than-light drives, your energy weapons, your artificial gravity systems. We studied them carefully. We learned how they worked. And more importantly, we learned how to make them stop working. Alarms began sounding throughout the fleet as more systems failed. Kethmer watched his tactical display as ship after ship reported critical malfunctions. Weapons systems offline, shields failing, engines operating at minimum power. You see, Admiral Collins said, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that because we were less advanced, we were less intelligent. You never considered that. We might find a completely different approach to the same problems. The trap was closing around them. Kethmer finally understood that they had walked into something far more dangerous than a simple rebellion. Admiral Kethmer stared at the tactical display as red warning lights flashed across his bridge. Half his fleet was showing critical system failures. Ships that had been the pride of the Imperial Navy were now drifting helplessly through space, their crews struggling to keep basic life support running. Sir Lieutenant Verdosh called out, the gravitational distortions are getting stronger. We are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt, but I cannot identify their source. Kethmer gripped the railing around his command. Chair, what do you mean you cannot identify them? Use the deep scanners. I'm trying, Admiral, but our sensors are only working at 30% power. Whatever these humans have done to space itself, it is interfering with all our systems. On the main screen, General Collins continued to watch them with that same calm expression. She seemed completely unafraid. Even though her planet was facing the largest battle fleet the Empire had sent to this region in decades, General Kethmer said, trying to keep his voice steady, you may have disrupted our systems temporarily, but we still have superior numbers and firepower. Stand down now, and I will make your defeat quick. Collins shook her head. Admiral, you still do not understand your situation. You are not here to conquer us. You are here to learn why humanity declared this system off limits. For Kethmer could respond, new contacts began appearing on his tactical display. Ships were emerging from behind asteroids throughout the belt, but these were not the crude converted cargo vessels intelligence had described. These ships moved with purpose and precision, and their energy signatures were unlike anything in the Imperial database. Sir Verdosh reported, I count at least 50 human vessels moving to intercept us. But Admiral, these ships are not showing up properly on our sensors. It is as if they are partially invisible. Captain Nicole Carter sat in the Command Center of Defense Platform Series, watching the Imperial fleet struggle with their failing systems. The platform had been disguised as a simple mining station for 30 years, but now its true purpose was revealed. Hidden beneath the rocky exterior were weapons that had been designed specifically to fight alien technology. "Target the lead dreadnought," she ordered her weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot across their bow. Let them see what they are facing." The platform's main weapon charged up with a sound like thunder. It was not an energy weapon that could be blocked by alien shields. Instead, it fired solid tungsten rods accelerated to nearly the speed of light by magnetic fields. The projectile crossed the distance to the Imperial fleet in seconds. The tungsten rod passed just in front of the Eternal Conquest, missing the massive ship by less than a mile. But the near miss was enough to demonstrate its power. It's the rod's passage through space created a visible streak of energy that lit up every sensor in the fleet. "Possible," Kethmar whispered. "No weapon can accelerate matter to those speeds without massive energy expenditure." His weapons officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Admiral, according to our readings, that projectile was moving at 97% of light speed. The energy required for such acceleration should have lit up our sensors like a star, but we detected almost no energy signature before it fired." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres watched the Imperial fleet from the bridge of the UES Retribution. His ship was one of 50 vessels that had been hidden throughout the asteroid belt, waiting for this moment. Unlike the Empire's ships, which relied on energy shields and advanced computers, human vessels had been built using hybrid technology that combined alien science with uniquely human innovations. "All ships. This is Torres," he said into his communication. "System, begin Phase 2. Target their engines and weapons, but avoid their life support systems. We want prisoners, not corpses." The human ships moved through the gravitational dead zones like ghosts. While the Imperial vessels struggled with failing systems, the human ships operated normally. Technology had been designed to work in the exact conditions that disabled alien equipment. The first human ship to attack was the UES Vengeance, commanded by Captain David Stone. His vessel fired a spread of kinetic projectiles at an Imperial cruiser. The alien ship's shields flickered and failed as the tungsten rods punched through its hull like paper. The cruiser began to list to one side, its engines dark. "This is impossible," Kethmar said again, but now his voice carried a note of panic. "Our shields should stop any physical projectile. How are their weapons penetrating our defenses?" His tactical officer, Commander Yithler, was studying the sensor data from the attack. "Their weapons are not using energy at all. They're firing solid matter at incredible speeds. Our shields are designed to deflect energy beams and plasma bolts, not physical objects moving at relativistic velocities." More human ships joined the attack. The Imperial fleet, spread out across millions of miles of space, found themselves under assault from multiple directions. Every time they tried to return fire, their weapons either missed completely or failed to function at reduced power. Admiral Kethmar realized that his fleet was being systematically dismantled. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being disabled by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessels, ignore the platforms. But even this order proved difficult to follow. The Imperial ships' targeting systems were malfunctioning. Their communications were being jammed by devices hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Orders took minutes to reach their destinations. And by then the tactical situation had already changed. Dr. Ben Rodriguez sat in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, monitoring the battle through sensors hidden across the solar system. For 50 years, he had worked on this project, studying every piece of alien technology that humanity could acquire. His team had not tried to copy alien science. Instead, they had looked for its weaknesses. "General Collins," he said, "the gravitational web is performing exactly as designed. Alien ships are completely trapped. They cannot escape to hyperspace, and their conventional engines are operating at minimal efficiency." Collins nodded, watching the tactical display that showed the one-sided battle taking place near Jupiter. "How long until they are completely disabled?" "At current rate of system failure, approximately 2 hours. Their power cores are being drained by the gravitational distortions. Soon, they will be running on emergency power only." The truth was finally becoming clear to Admiral Kethmar. This had never been a rebellion or a desperate last stand. It had been a trap 50 years in the making. While the Empire had dismissed, humanity is useful only for manual labor, human scientists had been studying every aspect of alien technology. They had learned that all faster-than-light drives used the same mathematical principles. All energy weapons operated on similar frequencies. All artificial gravity systems relied on the same physics, by manipulating gravitational fields in specific patterns. Humans had created zones where alien technology simply stopped working properly. Sir Telndai reported, "We are receiving surrender demands from multiple human ships. They want us to power down our remaining weapons and prepare to be boarded." Kethmer looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were veterans of dozens of campaigns, beings who had never known defeat. Now, they sat in the dark as emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. Their mighty warship was dying around them, killed not by superior firepower, but by superior intelligence. "Admiral," the communications officer said quietly, "General Collins is requesting to speak with you again." Kethmer straightened his uniform and tried to compose himself. When Collins appeared on the screen, she looked exactly the same as before. Calm, confident, and completely in control. "Admiral," she said, "your fleet is disabled and trapped. Your ships are running on emergency power, and your weapons are no longer functional. I am offering you the chance to surrender with honor. Here, crews will be treated well, and you will be returned to Imperial space once this matter is resolved." Kethmer wanted to refuse, to order his ships to fight to the last, but he could see the wisdom in her offer. His fleet was defeated, and continuing to fight would only result in unnecessary deaths. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. "Simple," Collins replied. "You will acknowledge that the Sol system is under human control. You will carry a message back to the Empire explaining what happened here, and you will recommend that they respect our Declaration of Independence." The admiral who had come to crush a rebellion found himself agreeing to become a messenger for the species he had planned to conquer. General Amy Collins stood in the command center, watching as the last of Admiral Kethmer's ships powered down their weapons. The battle was over, but the real demonstration of human power was about to begin. She turned to Dr. Ben Rodriguez, who was seated at a console covered with blinking lights. "Doctor, are the probes ready?" she asked. Rodriguez nodded, his fingers moving across the control panel. "All probe systems are online and waiting for activation. We have confirmed contact with devices in orbit around every major Imperial world." Collins took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing not just to defend Earth, but to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Activate the Prometheus Protocol. Across the galaxy on thousands of worlds controlled by the Dominion Empire, small devices that had been sitting quietly for decades suddenly came to life. They had been presented to the Empire as scientific research probes. Simple machines designed to study star systems and gather data about alien worlds. The Empire had allowed these probes because they seemed harmless. Human scientists were known to be curious about everything, and the probes never did anything except collect information and send occasional reports back to Earth. Imperial security had examined them thoroughly and found nothing threatening. Now, those same probes began broadcasting a message across every communication frequency known to galactic civilization. On the Imperial capital world of Kreth Prime, Admiral Vexthera was meeting with the Emperor's High Council when alarms began sounding. Throughout the palace, emergency communication systems activated, and every screen in the building displayed the same image. A human male in military uniform sitting calmly at a desk. "Citizens of the Dominion Empire," Captain Jake Morrison said, in a clear, steady voice. "My name is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. I am speaking to you from a probe that has been in orbit around your world for approximately 37 years. Vexthera felt her blood turn cold. She grabbed her communication device and tried to contact Imperial security, but the human broadcast was overriding all other signals. "You are probably wondering why these probes exist," Morrison continued. "The answer is simple. For 50 years, humanity has been watching you. We've been learning about your military installations, your defense systems, your population centers, and your weaknesses. Emperor Zarkith himself burst into the council chamber, his golden scales shimmering with rage. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our security forces assured me that human technology was primitive." Morrison's image seemed to look directly at the Emperor as he spoke. "These probes could have been weapons. They could have poisoned your water supplies, disrupted your planetary shields, or disabled your orbital defenses. They could have been programmed to activate simultaneously and cripple every world in your empire." On dozens of worlds, Imperial military commanders were receiving the same terrifying message. The humans had been inside their defenses for decades, capable of striking anywhere at any time. "But we chose not to use them as weapons," Morrison said, "because humanity does not seek conquest or revenge. We seek only to be left alone." Back in the Sol system, Admiral Kethmer was being transported to the UES Retribution under guard. The massive reptilian admiral looked broken, his proud bearing replaced by the posture of a defeated enemy. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres escorted him to a meeting room where General Collins was waiting via video link. Admiral Collins said, "I want you to understand what just happened here. Your fleet was not defeated by superior numbers or advanced weapons. You were defeated by superior planning and patience." Kethmer sat heavily in the chair provided for him. "How long have you been preparing for this?" "Since the day we first met your people," Collins replied. "I knew that eventually someone in the Empire would decide that humanity needed to be taught a lesson. We simply made sure we were ready when that day came." Dr. Rodriguez joined the conversation from his laboratory on Earth. "Admiral, your technology is impressive, but it all follows the same basic principles. Once we understood those principles, we could find ways to disrupt them. The gravitational web that trapped your fleet is just one example. But how did you hide all of this?" Kethmer asked. "Intelligence services have been watching human space for decades," Collins smiled. "They were watching what we wanted them to see. Every piece of defensive equipment, every weapon platform, every hidden base was disguised as something harmless. Mining operations, research stations, communication relays. Your people saw exactly what they expected to see from a primitive species." The broadcast from the probes continued across the galaxy, and Morrison's calm voice was explaining the final piece of humanity's strategy. "The Empire has learned that these probes exist, but they do not know how many there are or where they are all located. They do not know which ones are harmless research devices and which ones could be activated as weapons. This uncertainty will remain until the Empire agrees to respect human sovereignty." On Kepler Prime Station, where this whole crisis had begun, alien diplomats were evacuating in panic. The probe orbiting their station had demonstrated its ability to take control of their communication systems, and nobody knew what else it might be capable of doing. Admiral Vexathera tried to contact the fleet that had been sent to crush the human rebellion, but all she received was static. The 47th Battle Fleet, the pride of the Imperial Navy, it simply vanished into human space. 3 days later, a single Imperial courier ship approached the edge of the Sol system. It carried Admiral Kethmer and the surviving crews of his fleet. Along with a message for the Empire, the human ships that escorted them to the boundary were polite but firm. The Sol system remained off dash limits. Emperor Zarkith read Admiral Kethmer's report in his private chambers, his advisors standing silently around him. The report described weapons that could disable Imperial technology, defenses that had been hidden for decades, and a level of strategic planning that no one in the Empire had thought possible from a minor species. "Your recommendation, Admiral?" the Emperor asked. Kethmer, still bearing the shame of his defeat, straightened his shoulders. "Your Majesty, I recommend that we accept human demands for independence. They have demonstrated capabilities that we did not know existed. More importantly, they have shown restraint when they could have chosen destruction." The Emperor looked out the window of his palace at the city below. Somewhere up there, a human probe was watching everything, just as probes were watching every major world in his empire. "Very well," he said finally. "Send a message to the human government. The Dominion Empire formally recognizes human sovereignty over the Sol system and all claimed human territories." 10 years later, Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, walked through the gardens of New Geneva on Luna. Earth hung in the sky above, looking peaceful and beautiful. There were no visible signs of the defensive systems that protected it. But Morrison knew they were there, hidden and waiting. Lieutenant Commander Alex Peterson, his aide, brought him a datapad with the morning reports. Sir, the Empire has officially signed the Non-Interference Treaty. 3 other species have also requested defensive alliances with humanity. Morrison nodded, reading through the reports. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about the difference between appearing weak and actually being weak. More importantly, they had learned that the most dangerous enemies were not always the ones who made the loudest threats. Any word from Dr. Rodriguez about the new projects? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. He says the next generation of defensive systems should be ready for testing within 5 years. He also wanted me to tell you that he thinks we should be prepared for new threats. Quote, the galaxy is full of empires that might not learn as quickly as the Dominion did. Morrison smiled as he looked up at Earth. Humanity had won this battle not through violence, but through intelligence, patience, and the wisdom to know when not to use their full power. It was a lesson that had taken 50 years to teach, but it was one that the galaxy would not soon forget. In his laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez continued his work on humanity's defenses. When his assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, asked why they needed to keep preparing for threats that might never come, he simply smiled and said, because the galaxy is full of empires that laugh at declarations they do not understand. To make sure we are ready when the next one decides to test us. The story of how humanity declared Earth off limits had become legend throughout the galaxy. It was a tale of how the smallest species had outmaneuvered the largest empire, not through conquest, but through careful planning and the patience to wait for exactly the right moment to reveal their true strength.